Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Root Work with Shamina. This is a channel that is all about reconnecting us, our people, the African American people, melanated people, back to their indigenous practices so that we can elevate on a higher vibration. Here we talk about all different types of myths, truths, and get clarity on what it means to transition you from the strategic and the hand-me-down religious point of views to embracing a more open, holistic, spiritual path for you, for your family, and for those that you love. So I welcome you back to this channel. Today we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to be talking about a movie review that has just passed, which is the Judas and the Black Messiah. This is the story of Fred Hampton, an African-American activist out of Chicago who rose to be the leader, one of the leaders and the chairman of the Black Panthers, who was all about systemic change on a grander scale for, people of color, and making sure that we rose to the occasion as a society to get stronger, because he believed that true change was a collective. It was a collective effort, and it required the collective bonding together of everyone. And one of the beautiful things about him was his ability as a leader to connect different people and to connect different groups to perform, to form a united front, a united effort towards systemic change for African Americans. And I absolutely love his story. He's one of the people that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, because I believe he lived and was willing to die for what he believed in. But today I want to talk a little bit about the movie and what it meant, and some of the jewels in this film that we can actually learn from today. So let's dig right into it. First thing I want to jump into when it came to this film was the casting. I think this was one of the most well casted movies I've seen in a long time. And for me, casting is so important because without it, I think it takes away from the imagery, which takes away from people being able to relate and really draw in to the moment and what was happening. I think that it was fantastic. With the exception of the Fred Hampton actor, which was played by Daniel Kaluuya. I think that they could have found probably a better African American male who really embodied the look a little better than he did. I think he did an excellent job from where he was, from what he had to bring to the role. But I do think that it could have been, that role particularly could have been casted better. But everything else was casted, was exceptional. I think that I'm looking down at my phone, if you notice, because I'm trying to make sure that I get these names right, and that I have the notes that I put, because I really wanted to really get in depth and talk about my views on it. But the character of William O'Neill, which played the Judas role in this movie, and he was played by Lakeith Stanfield, and it was just perfect. It was perfect. I really feel it's so important when you can look at the imagery, when you can look at the characters, and they bring you and they become the people, they embody the spirit of these people. It really has a profound effect on the masses, and it makes you appreciate the story just even more. So Fred Hampton's, I call her his wife, because I believe that was the level of the connection they had. But Dominique Fishback played her character, and played the character of Deborah Johnson, which was Fred Hampton's significant other, who was pregnant by him, the mother of his son. And it was beautiful. It was really a perfect casting. So I have no problems with that. But now I just want to dig in a little bit of the story. In the story, when we see the character of William O'Neill, that's really the character that just has so many jewels in the story, in the role he played in Fred Hampton's life, and in this memoir of what happened to him. He was the most pivotal part, because it was with his help that Fred met his demise. And I think the qualities that he shown was something that qualities that we all have seen before in somebody, in someone in our lives. We've seen it as far back as slavery, where there was always that one, slave that would be the one to go back and tell master what's going on. Somebody who could be bought, somebody who could be sold in order to bring down the collective effort of everyone involved in the change. And even to this day, unfortunately, in the Black community, we have these individuals who are so in love with the wealth of this land, with the wealth of this world, that they are willing to sell their souls for it. Who, and even beyond the money part, I think that his role truly showed what can happen when we don't have, I'm trying to think of the right word, courage. When we lack courage, when we lack integrity, when we are so fearful that we, I used to always hear this, and I can't even put my finger on where I got it from, but it was a saying that always stuck with me. You either stand for something or you fall for anything. And I think so much so, even now, we see so many people who are willing to sell themselves, to sell their souls, to tear down the efforts that some of us are making to try to change the masses. And they are willing to sacrifice that change, that systemic change, in order to save their own selves, out of fear of struggle. And I think that, to me, is so huge, because one of the primary characteristics I want to talk about with this character is that his fear of not wanting to face prison. William O'Neill was a weak-willed man. He was a weak-willed man. And because he was so weak-willed, he was fearful, and he held on to his life so tightly. He was too connected to this land, to the wealth of this land, to the benefits of this land, that he was easily bought. And we can learn so much spiritually from his story. For those of us who don't know, it's long after Fred Hampton's death, there was an interview with William and with William O'Neill, and he admitted to his part in taking down the Black Panthers, particularly Fred Hampton, and the entire movement, honestly. And he was out of that, and from that interview was aired on Martin Luther King's birthday. And after that interview was aired, he committed suicide. So even him having to house all of that dissonance and all of that betrayal to his people, to himself, when you sell yourself for the wealth of this land, it will always come back void. It will always come back void. And so him doing that caused him to sacrifice his life. And when we look at this story, and we look at the story of William O'Neill from a spiritual perspective, we can see how everybody plays a role. Even, a traitor, even a rat has a role in this life. And in my spiritual practices, we believe that people have soul contracts, that before you come into this world, you are deciding what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And you have a part to play in deciding what your story is going to begin and all in between. When you agree to that soul contract, you are agreeing to come here and to fulfill your destiny and your purpose that you took part in planning. And so when I think of people like William O'Neill, and I think of how he was so blind, filled with fear, how he had he had a lack of integrity, a lack of will, and mental and physical strength. He was weak-minded, and he would do anything to avoid any level of pain. He had no resilience. And how many times do we run into people like that? How many times are people so afraid of a little bit of pain that you give up the whole cause? Afraid of a little bit of pushback that you just go along with the flow for the temporary gratification of getting the gift right now, of getting benefits right now. But then you have people like myself and other advocates who are out here pushing for what they believe in, who are willing to get up here in front of the cameras, who are willing to stand in front of your podiums, who are willing to put themselves out there just for the sole purpose of uplifting African Americans and melanated people to a higher frequency, even if it does not mean you'll always be regarded in the best light, even if it does not mean that you're always going to be looked at and understood, that people are going to take your words, they're going to flip it around. People, these are the things and the fears that we all have, but some of us have been called to overcome those fears. Some of us are strong, have strong wills, strong minds, and we have this in us that we have created a life for ourselves in terms of our soul contract, where we said, I'm going to go here. I'm going to come to this thing called earth, and I am going to make a difference. And I want my life to be remembered for doing something, for saying something. And I think the best thing I can say about the William O'Neill character is that it is never good. It is always dangerous to hold such value on the wealth of this world. It will always return to you void when you chase after wealth, when you are a lover of things. Buy me this. I want this. Let's get the best of this. These designers, these, people out here selling these products don't give a damn about you or me. But we will give up and risk our integrity. We will risk the revolution, the uprising, and the development of our people for the American dollar, for the dollar that could care less about you. And so this is what I really took from his character, and I found that it was just so amazing. Even there's a part in the movie where he's sitting down with the police officer, when the character of William O'Neill is sitting in front of the police officer after the deed is done, after, Fred Hampton has been killed, and the members of the Black Panther Party have been taken into, and arrested and taken into custody. You see him get handed the $200. And it's something so pivotal about that moment where you actually begin to see, because throughout the entire movie, you see him meet with this man at this table, and he eats at this table, and he's eating steak and potatoes, and he's so happy to have these temporary riches of this earth, that he's sitting there and he's indulging. But it wasn't until the end where he was handed that $200 where you got a chance to see what the true value of that piece of paper, that green piece of paper was. And it was so powerful for me because we spend our whole lives, many of us, chasing after that dollar. At the end of the day, it burns like a piece of white paper. At the end of the day, now that we're even going through this pandemic and the economy is upside down, we can begin to see how that green piece of paper is worth less than we even think it is. It's nothing. It comes down to barter systems now. It's coming down to skill set now. It's coming down to, again, stand for something, fall for anything. Because the wealth that you built your life on, the careers that you built your life, spent your life building, have been stripped from many of us. These six-figure incomes that many people were making have been stripped from them. And now you're only left with your essence. And if you have none, then we have tons of people now that don't even make the news that commit suicide because they lost the wealth that sustained them. And so, spiritually speaking, I just really wanted to focus in on that particular character because I think that it's worth talking about. It's worth understanding. Everybody wants nice things. It's a part of us being in this human body, having this human experience. We are not 100% spiritual, so our human side wants luxuries and does desire some of the wealth of this land. But that's where it comes into having a mind of discipline and understanding what your purpose is and understanding why you're here and making sure that you give these wealths and these riches the value that it deserves, which is little to nothing. It's good when you have it. But the quick as they give it to you, they take it right back from you. And is it worth having at the cost of sacrificing your soul, your mental health? To me, there's no question, but I know for some people, this is a real struggle. Somebody comes and hands you more money than you've ever seen at one time. Somebody comes and feeds you more food than you've ever had at one time. It's really hard for some of us to walk away from that, especially if we're not in connection to our spirituality and to our purpose, which is why I advocate so hard on this channel for us to reconnect ourselves, because religion will sometimes, religion has been tainted by the wealth of the world. It has been tainted by how much money you can gain in your collection plates. It has been tainted by, we need to get enough money to keep the roof, up. We need to get enough money to have this convocation and this conference. We need to get enough money to support this auxiliary and that auxiliary. And it's become so, business like because of the industry of it, because of the structure of it. Now we have to maintain it, which requires money. And now we are a slave to the wealth of the land. But if we were just meeting outside with a microphone, or if we were just meeting outside and letting people crowd around and we were preaching the word and it was no overhead, we would be a step closer to our spirituality than we are now. But the religious sector has become so institutionalized, and it has become, it has gained too much overhead. It's too costly now. And so now spirit costs when we talk about religion. And I want to move people away from that. It is my goal and my devout goal to present information to you, to give you a platform where you can come and ask questions, and that you can learn that this is not evil. This is not devilish witchcraft. This is spirituality. This is your African indigenous right to know, your African indigenous, inheritance, to be able to access the spirituality that I speak of, to be able to change the atmosphere, to be able to invoke, and to work with certain ancestors, and to reconnect yourselves with those people who are advocating for us every day, but we don't acknowledge them because we're too busy acknowledging Jesus, that we don't realize that our ancestors, our spirit guides, there are other people who are a part of this sector that work tirelessly and effortlessly to make sure that your life is as good as they can possibly get it. And so that's what, really stuck out for me. It was watching that character of William O'Neill eat at that table and having him be, the way he scarfed down the food, and he really felt like he was on the top of the world. And how many times some of us, when these jobs give us this paycheck, when we're able to purchase that home or get that car, we've all done it. It makes us stick our chests out. It makes us feel good about ourselves. But as soon as it gets repossessed, as soon as now with the COVID, we fall behind on our, on our home payments, and we are house poor. Most of us took our first opportunity to buy the biggest one family house we could buy as soon as we were able to do it. Instead of using our economic brains, instead of using our brains to come together to create wealth and get multifamily homes that will work for you, we took our money and whatever the bank said we had, we went and bought the biggest house we could possibly afford. And now we're a slave to our homes. We work to pay our homes off. And so that same mentality that William O'Neill had is not uncommon. It is not something that we're foreign to. We know it oh too well. We see it oh too well. People who are afraid to feel anything, so we'll do anything just to feel good. Afraid for sacrifice, afraid for pain, afraid to be poor, afraid to be, alone for the cause. And we don't have people anymore who have that kind of commitment, which is why we're struggling as a people today. And then when we do have the few people who stand up to try to do what they need to do for our people, we don't have many African American males standing up to advocate for our people and to be in the limelight. And when we do have those people, the first thing we do is we tear them down. We look for the flaws before we recognize the gifts. And it's a cycle. It's a cycle. And so I had to come up here to talk about how I was really pleased with the movie. I feel like it really drew you in. I feel like it showed you the power in numbers. I feel like it had the spirit of resilience that we need to have. And that character of William O'Neill is a testament to our people and the issues that we have with creating systemic change. And so I hope this was just my little spiel on the movie and on his character in particularly. And just to give you guys something to think about. you have to be willing to struggle. And that is something that religion doesn't teach us. Religion wants to always teach us that if we pray, we're going to get what we pray for. But sometimes the road to getting what you want is not a road in which you will see the results in your lifetime. Fred Hampton did not get to see the results of his movement in his lifetime. But his story, his essence, his sacrifice is a part of the bigger ball that is rolling, and it's getting larger and it's getting larger. And one day it's going to knock down the mountain that is holding back our people. And his essence was a part of that force that is going to one day invoke very serious and permanent change. And so I challenge everybody that in your journey to spirituality, this is not just for fun. This is not just who you pray to. It's how we live. True spirituality works hand in hand with with being an activist. It works hand in hand with liberating deprived people and people who have been ostracized and cast away. Liberating our Black people. It works together. It is how we commune with our ancestors, how we commune with our spirit, how we manifest change on this life. It is all a mindset. But when you have a mind like William O'Neill and you're too busy worrying and you don't have the strength, you don't have the will to withstand a little bit of pain. He was being sentenced to 5 years in prison. 5 years. Had he been strong enough, strong-minded enough, stood for something, he would have said, I can't do this to my brother. I can't do this to the larger amount of people who are going to be affected by this. This man is selected. This man is chosen. This is not something to be played with. This is a revolution. This is serious. Had he realized the significance of that man's life, he would not have wanted to be a part of it. And not saying they could have found somebody else, but if you're going to take down a people, we got to let's stop making it easy for them. Let's stop making it easy for them to take away and miseducate our children. Let's stop making it easy for them to sell us religion as a way to keep our minds occupied from true spirituality. Let's not make it easy for them to flash designers and have our babies dripped in all these designer clothes. Meanwhile, they have no idea who Fred Hampton is and his sacrifice to our nation, to our people. The miseducation has got to stop. And so I think we all got a little bit of William O'Neill in us at some point in our lives. We all carry that fear and that desire to want the wealth of the world at any cost. But again, as you open your mind, as you enlighten yourself and vibrate on a higher frequency, and you open that third eye, you'll be able to see the truth from the fake. You'll be able to see how this stuff doesn't mean anything. It burns. You know what I mean? It damages, it rips, it tears. But the soul, the will of a man, the strength of a man, the mental power of a man never dies. That energy keeps rolling and is passed down. And so we need to start investing ourselves, investing in the stuff that carries over, that appreciates. Your spirit, your mind, your will, your purpose appreciates with time. It appreciates over long after you die. And these designers and this money and that $200 that was handed to William O'Neill cost him his life. And I'm sure if he was here and he was able to say it, and even when he wasn't able to say it, his spirit couldn't take it, and he had to separate from his human body and commit suicide, because it was just that powerful. It was just that in disagreement. His spirit was in such disagreement with his physical self that it had to separate, and his will had to be, it had to be done. It had to be done. His soul contract had to be fulfilled. And so I thank him for his contribution, even though it may have cost us a revolution that could have changed many. I do thank him for what he brought to the table in terms of learning from the mistakes he made. And so I hope you like this video. Just a little spiel about it. And again, build your resilience in this life. Build your resilience in this life. Don't be afraid of pain. Don't be afraid of sacrifice. Because at the end of the day, we all die, we all bleed, we all leave this place. That's the inevitable. But how you go and what you go for and in whose name you go for, it's up to you. So let's make the connection here. Spirituality is consciousness. When we walk around and we say we're conscious and we're activists, an activist mindset has to be a mindset of true spirituality. You cannot advocate for the advancement of your people if your mind is still in a box, if your spirit is still in a box, if you are still believing in hand-me-down religion and what people, you're eating everything that you're fed. You don't question, you don't inquire, you don't seek higher. That mind can never be the mind of a true activist.
Fred Hampton, chairman of Illinois Panther Party.
All power to the people. What we basically going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about political prisoners, and we're going to be talking about what the pig is doing to the Panthers all around the country. We're going to specifically be talking about what the pigs are doing to the Black Panther Party right here in Chicago, Illinois. And also we're going to have to talk about what are we going to have to do about the repression that they put on the Black Panther Party in order to get that repression off of the Black Panther Party. And we're not really worried about getting off of it. Let's try to deal with it. Because you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail revolution.